Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Brandon. Welcome to Audio Addiction, where you can find latest album reviews, you can find our band interviews, and you can find live coverage of the concerts that we get. I will be posting a lot more live videos. I know I've been lax on that, but I will be getting back into the grind of doing those. Got the whole Envy on the Coast tour, so I'm excited to work on those. Interviews will be going out the same, along with album reviews. And if you could please subscribe, that would mean the world to me. I've been trying to get to 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible. YouTube has kind of cracked down on that, and I hope to get them all done within the month. I'll be posting a separate video probably around the same time as this one goes out, so definitely be on the lookout for that. So tonight, without further ado, we're going to be talking about Speak Low, If You Speak Love's new record, Nearsighted. So, first of all, thank you to Austin over at Secret Publicity. He's the man, and he's the one who sent me this record over about, a week or two early, so I really do appreciate it. I always want to show love to my publicist friends. They are the ones that allow me to put out content like this, so I appreciate it. But for those of you who haven't heard of this band, it's a side project of Ryan Graham of State Champs, and he does more of this sort of indie electronic stuff, which I highly recommend checking out. This for me was something a little bit different, and I wanted to give it a listen just because for me, I like what Ryan does. I think he's got a great vocals, and for me to kind of listen to him just solely was really cool. An experience too as well, just because musically I don't know what type of background he has and things of that nature, so it was really cool to listen to this record and kind of listen to different things that I'm typically not really active in listening to, and I could really pick out some stuff that I like. So I'm going to go through each track, give you my thoughts and opinions on it. I'm going to go through some pros and cons of the entire record, and then I'm going to round it out with an overall rating. So the first track on the record is Have I Changed? Liking the sort of subtle electronics that is kind of the theme throughout this record, is that sort of underlying softer sort of electronic parts. There are some songs that have that more dynamic electronic parts and kind of stick out more, but this one is just a little bit more subtle, and then the song I feel like really comes together around the minute mark. It kind of starts off with this sort of ambient, like ethereal sort of ambient undertones to the song. I'm really liking Ryan's vocals. I think they have a really warm and inviting vibe to him, especially in this track. I feel like vocally, he's definitely does a really great job, and for me it was kind of a surprise because I know he does vocals live with State Champs, but for me it was kind of different listening to him in a different light and having him be the spotlight of the band, and I really do appreciate that. As somebody who does both, I think he does them both very well, and I think it works out well in this track super well. The song has this really good amount of layering to it as well, but it definitely sounds cohesive. It's not too out of bounds, and I appreciate that. It just adds another layer to the song, and it just adds another layer to the whole album in general. I feel like if he left those out, it would kind of feel bland. I feel like things are missing, so that's definitely cool to hear that. And we're gonna move on to the second track, which is Enough. Loving the groove of this track. I feel like it really has more of a driven sort of indie tone to it, and it kind of drives a lot of the tracks off this record that kind of have that more indie-ish tone to it. Liking the use of synths, I think, sprinkled throughout the track. I think it adds this sort of dynamic, much like the first track, Have I Changed. It really adds a cool counterbalance to the real good instruments, bass, guitars, vocals, drums. I feel like it pairs very well with that. Definitely for me, I've loved the bass and the drums. I feel like those are the ones that stick out to me the most in this track in particular. And Ryan's vocals play very nicely with the instrumentals, like I've been mentioning earlier. I feel like the groove of the track is kind of really centered around how the electronics pair with the instrumentals, and how his voice kind of meshes throughout the entire track. And I feel like in this one it does a really good justice to not only Ryan's vocals, but just song ability and song structure, I feel like it works well in this one. So we're gonna move into track number 3, which is Contrasting Colors. This one is probably the, I wouldn't say it's the different of the album. I would say that it's kind of just interesting how they started out. Ryan's vocals, it's pretty much just Ryan's vocals and acoustic for the better half of the song, and then as it progressed, I feel like more instruments are added, like piano, xylophone, and synths, electronic sort of stuff is all added throughout the track, and I feel like it adds this really diverse and complex and sort of unique depth to the track in particular. This one happens to be one of my favorites as well. I just feel like it combines Ryan's vocals very well. He has those really soft, tender moments, but then he also has some really like uplifting parts, especially in the chorus. I feel like it really kind of shines. The song definitely reminds me a little bit of Cinematic Sunrise, one of Craig Owens' side projects, which is sick. They're one of my favorite bands too. So that was the type of vibes that I was getting, and I feel like the pacing is really well for an over 5 minute track. Typically, it's tough to keep somebody's attention for 5 minutes or longer. So I feel like this one really kind of kept my attention. Just as a musician, I feel like for me, just listening to all the sort of variances in the track really kind of pulled me in and made me want to listen to it more. And as I got through the album multiple times, this was one that I loved coming back to. Definitely had those sort of nostalgic sort of vibes to it, but at the same time it was very new and exciting, so I appreciate this track a lot. So we're gonna move into track number 4, which is Ever Yours. Loving the contrasting guitar riffs in the verses. I think that's really cool, and for me as a guitarist, I think that's something that I pick out a lot in the music when I'm listening to albums to be reviewed. That's something that I definitely is a go-to for me. This one has most of the sort of indie vibes to it, and definitely reminds me a little bit of From Indian Lakes in some parts as well. And the structure just works really well. I love the hints of organ throughout. I feel like that adds a really cool depth to the track as well. And Ryan's vocals just glide and glisten over this track. It feels like this song, to me, is a great sort of driving track. And what I mean by that is like a track you can put on in your car and just drive for hours. I feel like this one is definitely one of those that is a go-to track off this record, and it's definitely one of my favorites. So we're gonna move into track number 5, which is Your Love It Runs. This one is the more unique and sort of eclectic tracks off the record. The instrumentation has a lot to do with this sort of unique and eclectic vibe to the track. The instruments range from flutes, horns, organs, electronics, obviously the standard bass, drums, and guitar and vocals. But I feel like this one is the most expansive that Ryan has been so far in terms of instrumentals and just arrangements of tracks, but also his vocals too. I feel like he really went in depth with his range, and it was something that you could definitely pull from this track. You can hear bits of falsetto and just more range in general. It was really kind of one of those more experimental tracks that I feel like either some people love or some people won't like as much, but for me, I really appreciate this track. I like it a lot. It's probably up there in my favorites as well, and it just works. I thought it was really cool to see just a different sort of vibe and just different things that you can add into a track to make it really, really expansive, and I think he did a great job with that one. So we're gonna move into track number 6, which is Safety Net. This one is very simplistic in a great way. I think that you don't have to really be complex with the sort of styling. I feel like a lot of the layering and the additional effects of the song kind of add that complexity to it, but it's also simple in the sense that it's very much just vocals and pianos, but I think it works very well. There's also, I think, a guest feature. I don't know who it is. Maybe somebody can, elaborate on it, but it starts from the 2 minutes and 25-second mark to about the 2 minutes and 50-second mark. I think her voice really contrasts well with Ryan's voice in a really nice way, and this one is just a beautiful sort of ethereal track that I was not expecting on this record. It is also a song that I was not expecting Ryan to really put out, honestly, but it just works out beautifully. I would love to know who the vocalist is because she was awesome too, and they should definitely do stuff more in the future because I feel like it works very well on this track, and really enjoyed that one. So we're gonna move into track number 8, which is Hatsuyume. Pretty sure I pronounced that right. Not sure. Usually pretty bad with that. But anyway, getting back to the track, I like what Ryan's doing with his vocals in this one. They have a bit of a grit to them, which I was appreciative of. I think for me, not that his vocals get bland, but I definitely would love a little bit more just kind of tonality change in the way he does stuff. And I think that this one kind of highlights that tonality change. The electronics add this nice sort of mellow ambient, vibe to the track, and I've just been enjoying the expansive nature of what Ryan's able to come up with. I feel like this would be kind of really out of bounds for state champs, so I love that he's able to express himself and kind of change it up. And these tracks definitely show that for sure. And I feel like the more you listen to it, the more you pick up, the more sort of things that you're listening to that you wouldn't be listening to on the first run, and then the second run you might be finding out cool other things in the second run. So it's really cool to see that take on music. And for me, who listens to a lot of albums and does a lot of reviews, I think that that's really refreshing, and I appreciate it a lot. So we're gonna move into track number 8, which is Circle Spinning. This really has this nice counterplay of electronics and sort of indie alternative vibes in this song. I think the layered vocals in the chorus really add this real sort of depth to the chorus. Really interesting. I like the layering effect that they did on that. It was super cool. I really like the arrangement as well. I thought that was really solid. It almost gives me that sort of John Mayer vibe, especially in the bridge. Definitely, I felt those sort of John Mayer vibes, especially like more recent, like newer John Mayer, like Search for Everything John Mayer. But really appreciated that, and I think it starts off a bit slow, but it definitely gains ground as this track progresses, which I appreciate too. I think you can't always give a song off of just the beginning half. I think you got to listen through, and you got to listen to it many times. So I think for me, I definitely appreciated that, and I think that while it is a slow start, I think it ends very well. So we're gonna move into track number 9, which is Cannot Have It All. This one to me gives me that sort of This Wildlife vibe, and if they ever did a tour together, that would be super dope. So Ryan, if you care to watch this, definitely would love to see a tour of that. That'd be super sick. But anyway, getting back to my dreams and stuff, but getting back to this review, the arrangement on this song is really good as well too. I think he's really a phenomenal arranger. I think that each thing has its sort of place, and I felt like if it was out of the track, it would be kind of misrepresentation of what Ryan does. So definitely like that. I feel like the song works in this really harmonious way, and just everything has its own parts of the song. Nothing really kind of eclipses it, which is appreciative. And just the horns, the pianos were really great additions to this track as well, and work with the vibe of this track. And it's definitely one of my favorite sort of softer tracks off the record. I know that all of these aren't really remotely quote unquote heavy, but I appreciate the sort of genre changes throughout this record, and this one is definitely on the slower end, but I do appreciate that sort of softer, more like emotional sort of vibe of this track. So we're gonna move it into track number 10, which is Mystery's Gone. I get sort of hints and mixes of Transit, one of my favorite bands of all time. Loving this sort of subtle synth vibes that kind of round out the track. Loving the sort of lead melody in the chorus is one of those that's really catchy and very just interesting. I think it works very well on this track. This one is a bit of a slow jam, I would say, and I'm kind of on the fence on if it's good or not. However, I really enjoy the bridge on this track, so I feel like it's kind of in that gray area between, good tracks, favorite tracks, to not like great tracks, but not terrible tracks. So for me, it's kind of in that gray area. It's an okay track, but I definitely feel like it could be better in my opinion. So we're gonna move into track number 11, which is Hold Me Now. This one is really interesting, and why I say that is that the guitars have this sort of reversed effect to them, and kind of have this sort of reversed reverb too, in certain parts. which is really interesting. I love the effect choice on that. There's also horns and flutes that have more of a heavier influence on this track, which also don't hate either. It's just interesting. And the vocals have this sort of layered harmony sort of vibe to them, which is really cool. But overall, I think it's a really unique track. I feel like a lot of people will either immediately like it or be on the fence about it, like me, or just hate it in general. I think personally, I'm on the fence about it as well. I think it's really interesting. I think it's executed pretty well too. And I would definitely say that this is sort of the black sheep track of off the record. I know that typically when I'm listening to albums, there's one track that's just kind of out of left field, and this one definitely feels like that, but not in a bad way. So I would kind of put it in the same area that I would put Mystery's Gone. It's kind of in that gray area between good and bad, but I'd probably put it closer to good because it's just interesting. So we're gonna move into the last track, track number 12, which is Swell. This one definitely feels like the culmination of the record. It really kind of has everything that preceded it. It has some horns, it has really unique melodies to it, and I think it just works. The unique choices of additional instruments, like I've been mentioning, cello, flute, piano, those were the sort of things that I could pick out. Probably more synth, guitar, vocals, drums, bass, all that sort of stuff. But some of the more unique stuff, obviously, cello, flute, and piano are really interesting in this track. Really liking the descending riff in the chorus. That was something that just kind of grabbed me and picked out. And this one also is that sort of slow jam track as well. There's this really cool build up in the bridge with this really interesting guitar solo. But I think it's a pretty good track to end the record off with. I feel like it culminates the record pretty well. And it just kind of encompasses the whole more elements found on this record. Really expansive, very interesting. And so I'm gonna go into some pros and cons of the record. I think that I think that he did a lot. He did like a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting stuff, very expansive, very diverse. I feel like it's a record that is just a record you could put on, and when I was cleaning my room, I was like, let me listen to this record. And for me, it's got this expansiveness to it. It's got some real diversity to it, and there's some really awesome tracks on here that I really liked. I think some of my favorites obviously being Contrasting Colors. Your Love It Runs was really cool and interesting. I would also say Can I Have It All is definitely one of my favorites as well. But there's this nice mix of softer tracks, more indie based tracks. There's some more electronic, sort of interesting tracks. But overall, it's kind of got that mellow, sort of ambient vibe to it, which I appreciate. And it's something that, again, I don't delve too much into. I love that sort of genre, but there isn't like a ton of stuff coming out in this, so I think it's definitely added to this sort of not. I guess it's ended this sort of dry spell of really great albums. So definitely appreciate this one. I think con wise, there are some tracks that I don't like just because they are just a little bit too far out, or they just didn't grab me in that sort of way. So that's a personal con, but mostly I really enjoyed this record. I thought it was just an interesting take on what I typically know Ryan for. And it was really interesting. I have not listened to the older stuff, which I probably will if it's very similar to this. I really enjoyed this record, and so my overall rating for Speak Low, If You Speak Love, Nearsighted, I'm gonna be giving it a 9.3 out of 10. I think it's definitely one you should check out if you like Ryan's stuff at State Champs and you want to try something different. Totally would do that. If you're looking for something that's more indie, has more of those indie vibes to it, definitely check out this record. If you like that sort of like undertone of like electronic sort of vibes to it, very similar to maybe like MGMT or Panic or Passion Pit or maybe the Wombats or something like that, I definitely feel like, or from Indian Lakes, I feel like this record will definitely speak to you as well. So I feel like it speaks to a wide variety of musics and genres. So I definitely feel like you should check it out. And let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this record. Have you heard it? Have you not? If you have picked it up, definitely let me know too. I will be checking out them on tour with Neck Deep. I'll actually be interviewing Ryan quote unquote fingers crossed, that same day. So I'm really excited for that. I'm going to be heading out to the Philly date. So if you are there, come say what's good to your boy. I'll be hanging out. I hope to be getting live coverage of that tour as well soon. So if you enjoyed this review, please hit that subscribe button, make sure that like button as well. It really does go a long way, and if you like it a lot, please share this. I'd love to get to as many of you as possible, so if you could do that, that'd be mucho appreciated. And my name is Brandon. We hope you got your fix, and we'll be talking with you soon. Peace. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you enjoy what we do, make sure to go check out the other series we do. We do album reviews, we do band interviews, and we do live videos, so definitely go check that out. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps our channel, helps us grow. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Go follow us on social media. That's all down below. We try to keep that as updated as possible. We also made a new website where we'll be posting photos of upcoming concerts and stuff like that, which you can go check out at audioaddictionmedia.com, and come get your fix with us, guys. Talk to you later. Deuces.